You write the following, so true. There was never a groundbreaking business that wasn't loudly predicted to fail. By the way, yesterday was the 25th anniversary of Fox News' foundation. And when I worked there for 13, 14 years, Roger Ailes had signs all over the building of the predictions that he was going to fall on his face, that Fox News would never be able to compete with MSNBC. P.S. They have 3 times their ratings and have for most of their history, so on and so forth, right? So there was never a groundbreaking business that wasn't loudly predicted to fail. And there has never, ever been a time when the average opinion of faceless, unaccountable strangers should be valued above our own considered judgment. Man, that's true. It's like you meet some of these people, who are coming after you online, and you're like, oh my God, what was I listening to them for?
Yeah, and the great rule I love in writing is that when somebody tells you something's wrong with what you're writing, they're almost always right. This is the tricky part. But when they tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong. So the idea is like, the opinions of the crowd or the mob can generally be alerting you to something that you need to think about, that you need to double check, you need to make sure that you're communicating effectively, but then you don't actually listen to them about their opinion. So if, let's say, you have some message and you're morally and in terms of justice completely correct, but then everyone has a negative reaction to it, it's not that you reconsider those principles per se, but you go, well, clearly I see something that you don't see, and I'm going to evaluate how I'm going to communicate this more effectively, because obviously the point isn't to stand alone and be correct in isolation. The point is to bring other people to it. It's like if you have some genius work of art, but nobody appreciates it because you don't know how to market it, how genius is the work actually?
Mm-hmm. It's tricky in today's day and age, however, because we've become so tribal and politicized that so much of the criticism is not in good faith, and they're not really trying to persuade, right? So it's like you got to sort of figure out whether this is a politics issue or a genuine search to change people's minds and communicate effectively and bring people over to your side of the table, like in a business setting.
Well, and it's filtered through the economics and the constraints of social media. So it's like you work for 2 years on a book, and then somebody sums it up in a 240 character tweet. There's an asymmetry there. So we're lacking the nuance or the consideration. If you actually sat down and had a conversation with this person, you might find that you agree about more than you disagree. But in the confines of an internet comment or a YouTube video, you're not quite getting the same consideration or conscientiousness or good faith, as you said, that one would normally be entitled to.
You write, we shouldn't worry about whether things will be hard. They will be. Instead, focus on the fact that these things will help you. Thus, you do not need to fear them. Our bruises and scars become armor. Our struggles become experience. They make us better. They prepared us for this moment, just as this moment will prepare us for the one that lies ahead. Boom. Honestly, that's my life philosophy. I call it building your superhero muscles. Every time life throws something really challenging at you, you should say thank you.
The Stoics have this concept of amor fati, which means a love of fate. And Marcus Aurelius uses the image of fire. He says everything that you throw on top of a fire is fuel for the fire. He says it turns everything into flame and brightness, which is, to me, is a beautiful, inspiring way to think about it. This is fuel. I'm going to absorb this, I'm going to consume it, and I'm going to turn it into heat, right? But I would say that the caveat to that is that if the fire is weak, if it's just like a puny spark or a dying ember, you throw something on top of it, it puts it out. So if you have that energy, that drive, that passion, that commitment, then all the obstacles can be used as fuel. If you're half-hearted about it, if you're weak-willed about it, then the scars and the bruises and everything, they don't become armor, they become sort of mortal blows. So it's about also what you bring to it that allows you to use it and turn it into something.
Well, this is why you need to, and I know you have 2 young kids now yourself, and I've got 3 kids. This is why you need to let them take some licks out in the schoolyard and otherwise, so they can start practicing, building up that armor and getting those bruises and scars that become their armor. But be at the ready to step in if you need to, because the wounds shouldn't cut too deep. They're not yet ready to handle that.
Yeah, they call that snowplow parenting, the parent that clears all obstacles and impediments out of the way of their children. And I think this is what leads directly into, the college admissions scandal. These were parents who had, up until this point, removed every obstacle or difficulty from their children's path. And then when it turned out that getting into a good school was harder than expected, they had to pull all sorts of strings, unethical strings, one last time to solve a problem for them, because they hadn't cultivated children, they hadn't raised children who were capable of solving their own problems.